Teachers told black girl to play violin to mock her, but they regret it when she starts playing. The prestigious St. Mary's Academy wasn't known for welcoming people like Jasmine Lewis. The elite private school, nestled in the heart of Westchester, had a legacy of wealth, exclusivity, and tradition. Jasmine had earned her scholarship through sheer hard work. Her exceptional grades, her dedication to her studies, and her unwavering determination had made her one of the top students in the district. But as a black girl walking the halls of a school where most of the students came from wealthy, white families, Jasmine often felt like an outsider. Today, though, something was different. Today, the tension was palpable, and it wasn't because of her skin color. It wasn't because of her scholarship. It was because today, Jasmine was about to do something she had never done before, face the ridicule of her peers head-on. She had just been handed a violin case by Mrs. Hadley, the music teacher who had spent the last few weeks trying to get Jasmine to participate in the school's prestigious orchestra showcase. Jasmine had always been a skilled violinist. Her passion for music ran deep, and she had practiced for years. But this year, her nerves got the best of her. She had been avoiding the spotlight, afraid of being scrutinized, afraid of standing out even more than she already did. But now, in front of her peers, she had to perform. And something told her this wasn't just going to be any ordinary performance. The room was filled with students, all eyes on her. A few whispered, others exchanged glances, but all Jasmine could feel was the weight of their stares. Mrs. Hadley had asked her to play in front of the class, to showcase her talent. But what the teacher didn't know was that Jasmine had a secret. This wasn't just about a school performance. This was a test. As Jasmine walked to the front of the room, the students grew silent. There was something in the air, a strange mix of anticipation and amusement, as if they were all waiting for her to fail. She could feel it, the heavy weight of expectation pressing down on her, but she didn't falter. Not this time. She had worked too hard to get here, and if they wanted a performance, she would give them one they would never forget. Go ahead, Jasmine. Show us what you've got. The voice came from the back of the classroom. Ava, a popular girl with platinum blonde hair, her eyes sharp with judgment. Ava, along with a few others, had been teasing Jasmine for weeks about her involvement in the school's music program. Jasmine had learned to ignore the comments, the subtle jabs about how she didn't fit the mold, how she was out of place in a school like this. But something in Ava's tone today was different. It wasn't just mocking. It was calculated. It was designed to humiliate her. Jasmine stood tall, ignoring the voice that taunted her. She could feel the sting of their laughter in her bones, but she refused to let it break her focus. She had spent years training for this moment. She wasn't about to let them see her sweat. As she opened the violin case, the delicate instrument gleamed in the fluorescent light, and she could hear the hushed murmur of the class behind her. They were watching her every move. Could she do it? Could she really show them that they had underestimated her? Mrs. Hadley was standing off to the side, her expression unreadable. Jasmine took a deep breath, feeling the familiar warmth of the violin against her shoulder. The bow rested gently in her hand, and her fingers moved into position without hesitation. For a moment, she felt a wave of calmness wash over her. This was her world. The only thing that mattered now was the music. She knew that if she played it right, if she put her soul into the music, nothing else would matter. The whispers, the snickers, the judgment, it would all fade away as soon as the first note left the strings. Her eyes closed as she began to play. The room was suddenly silent. The only sound was the soft hum of the violin strings as they vibrated beneath her fingertips. Jasmine let the bow glide gently across the strings, starting with a soft, melancholy note. The melody was soothing, but there was an undertone of something deeper, something powerful. As the notes filled the air, the room seemed to grow stiller, as if everyone had been drawn into the music. She played Bach's Cello Suite No. 1, a piece that had always been close to her heart. It was elegant and graceful, yet complex in its simplicity. She had played it countless times before, but now it felt different. Now it felt like the whole world was watching. The first few notes passed without incident, but soon Jasmine's confidence began to grow. She felt her fingers moving with purpose, the bow dancing across the strings with precision and passion. The music was taking over, and for the first time in what felt like forever, she wasn't worried about what people thought. She was lost in the sound. As the final note echoed through the room, a deep, resonant silence followed. Jasmine lowered the violin, her heart racing as the last vibrations of the string faded into the still air. She opened her eyes, the tension building in her chest. At first, no one moved. The room felt like it was holding its breath. And then the first clap. It was a slow, hesitant clap, followed by another. Then, finally, the room erupted into applause. Not just polite applause, but genuine awe. Jasmine stood there, her heart pounding in her chest, as her classmates and Mrs. Hadley clapped enthusiastically. But in the back of the room, Ava's face was frozen in disbelief, her mouth slightly open. The mocking laughter from earlier was gone. In its place was a humble admiration that Jasmine had worked her entire life to earn. But just as the applause began to settle, Ava's voice cut through the quiet. How did you do that?" Ava asked, her voice trembling with something between confusion and respect. Jasmine smiled, her confidence now radiating from her. But she wasn't finished yet. This wasn't just about proving herself in front of Ava. This was about proving to herself that she belonged, that she could do this. But before she could say anything, Mrs. Hadley stepped forward, her eyes wide with astonishment. "Jasmine, that was incredible." But even as the praise filled the room, Tasha knew something bigger was unfolding, something that would test her abilities in ways she couldn't yet imagine. As she set the violin back into its case, she caught a glimpse of the door. The principal was standing in the doorway, his arms crossed, a stern expression on his face. Jasmine's heart skipped a beat. What did he want? But before she could even wonder, he stepped into the room and addressed the class. "I need to speak with you, Miss Lewis." The applause from her classmates still echoed in her ears, but Jasmine couldn't shake the uneasy feeling in her chest. The principal, Mr. Peterson, stood at the door, his stern gaze never wavering from her. He was a man of few words and even fewer smiles, and his presence seemed to command respect, even fear, among the students. Jasmine hadn't expected this, not after what had just happened. She had shown the class a piece of her soul, a glimpse of her talent. She had proven that she wasn't just some stereotype to be written off, dismissed, and mocked. She had been heard. But now, as the applause faded, the room was once again filled with the sound of his footsteps. Jasmine carefully placed the violin back into its case, though her fingers felt a little unsteady from the nerves bubbling up inside her. It had been an exhilarating moment, but now something felt different. She couldn't shake the look on Mr. Peterson's face. His expression remained unchanged, impassive, as if he was trying to measure something deeper than just her performance. She had a sinking feeling that this moment, this victory, might not come without consequence. He finally stepped forward, his polished shoes clicking against the floor, his arms folded tightly across his chest. "Jasmine Lewis," Mr. Peterson said, his voice steady but cold. "I need to speak with you." Jasmine's heart skipped a beat. The energy from her performance began to drain out of her as she stepped towards him, the weight of her uncertainty slowly creeping back. What could the principal possibly want with her? She hadn't done anything wrong. She had just played her violin, shown them her talent, but now it seemed that the spotlight wasn't entirely a safe place to be. "Of course, Mr. Peterson," she said, her voice cool despite the nervous flutter in her stomach. She couldn't afford to show fear now, not after everything she had just accomplished. But this felt different. The students slowly began to file out of the room, giving Jasmine and the principal space. Ava, the girl who had mocked her earlier, shot her a look, a mixture of awe and disbelief. Jasmine hadn't expected that, but she could see it in the eyes of her classmates. They were beginning to realize that Jasmine wasn't just a token scholarship student. She was someone who could command attention, someone who deserved to be heard. When the last student left, Mr. Peterson motioned for Jasmine to follow him down the hall. His expression remained neutral, but there was something in the way he carried himself that made Jasmine uneasy. She followed him, her footsteps echoing in the empty corridor as they walked toward the principal's office. Mr. Peterson sat behind his desk and gestured for Jasmine to take a seat in front of him. He didn't waste time with pleasantries. His eyes met hers with an intensity that made her feel like she was under a magnifying glass. "That was impressive, Jasmine," he began, his voice level, but there was an underlying sharpness to it. "You really caught their attention today. You've got talent." Jasmine nodded, trying to remain composed. "Thank you, Mr. Peterson." He paused, glancing at the papers scattered across his desk. "But," he continued, his gaze shifting back to her, "we both know that this school isn't always as welcoming as it pretends to be. You've seen it, haven't you? How they look at you. The whispers when you walk into a room. The way you are treated, even though you earned your place here." Jasmine felt a chill in her spine, but she didn't flinch. She had lived with that reality her whole life. The constant stares, the assumptions. Being the only black girl in the room made her feel like an outsider. But she had learned to keep her head high and never show weakness. "I know how it is," she replied carefully. "I'm used to it." She said this more for herself than him, as if reminding herself that she was in control. Mr. Peterson leaned forward slightly, his eyes narrowing. "You should be. But let me be clear, Jasmine. There are things at play here that you might not understand yet. Your performance today, it didn't go unnoticed, not by me and not by the others. But you're also a target now." The word target made her blood run cold. She sat up straighter in her seat, her hands clenched together in her lap. "A target? What do you mean?" Mr. Peterson gave a small, humorless smile. "You're challenging the status quo here. A black girl with that kind of talent. Well, it makes some people uncomfortable. People with power, influence, and resources. People who don't want you to succeed. You've stirred something here, Jasmine." He paused, his fingers drumming softly on the desk. "There are a lot of people who might not like this. Your talent, your ambition, and they won't hesitate to push you back down if you make too much noise." Jasmine's mind raced, but she kept her expression neutral. Was this a warning? Or was he just testing her resolve? She had never been one to back down from a challenge. But what Mr. Peterson was suggesting was far more sinister than anything she had anticipated. "Are you telling me I should stop?" Jasmine asked, her voice calm but firm. "Should I hold back because it makes people uncomfortable?" Mr. Peterson's expression softened, just slightly. "I'm not telling you to stop. I'm telling you to be careful. Be strategic. People like Ava and others in this school, people with influence, they won't just let you shine. They won't just sit back and watch. You've got to know what you're walking into." Jasmine looked down for a moment, processing the weight of his words. She had spent her life pushing against barriers, proving herself to a world that doubted her. Now it seemed that the barriers were more than just the people in this school. They were connected to something much bigger and more dangerous. "I'll be careful, Mr. Peterson," she said, standing up and placing her violin case over her shoulder. "But I won't let anyone stop me. Not anymore." As Jasmine turned to leave, she was stopped by a voice she didn't expect to hear. Ava stepped into the doorway of the principal's office, her arms crossed, her usual smug smile replaced by something else, something uncertain. "Jasmine, wait, Ava started, but she hesitated, her words faltering. Jasmine paused, her eyes locking with Ava's. Could this be a trick? A last attempt to get under her skin? But there was something different in Ava's eyes. Something that wasn't just mocking anymore. Before Jasmine could say anything, Ava spoke again, her voice quieter this time. "I just wanted to say, I was wrong about you. What you played today, it was incredible." Jasmine stood in stunned silence, unsure how to react. The girl who had mocked her for so long was now standing in front of her, offering an apology. Was this genuine? Or just another game? "Are you serious?" Jasmine asked, her voice low. Ava's eyes softened, the arrogance gone. "I didn't think you had it in you. I was wrong." Jasmine looked at Ava for a long moment, the air between them charged with tension. What had changed? Why was Ava speaking to her this way now? Before she could say anything else, Ava glanced down at the floor, then back up. Just be careful. This school isn't what it seems. Jasmine stood in the doorway, processing the unexpected encounter. What was Ava's game? Jasmine stood in the doorway, her mind spinning as she processed Ava's unexpected words. Be careful. The phrase lingered in the air, heavy with an unfamiliar weight. Ava, who had been nothing but a source of mockery and disdain, was now standing before her, offering half-hearted apology, followed by a warning. Jasmine couldn't quite place her emotions. Part of her wanted to shrug it off, dismiss it as a simple act of weakness from Ava, who had clearly underestimated her all along. But something about the way Ava spoke, the way her words trembled just slightly, made Jasmine pause. As Ava turned and walked away, her back stiff and her shoulders slightly hunched, something clicked in Jasmine's mind. Was Ava truly apologizing? Or was this some sort of twisted game? Shaking her head, Jasmine pushed the thoughts aside. She had bigger things to focus on now, starting with the threats that Mr. Peterson had mentioned. He wasn't wrong. This was just the beginning. Jasmine had proven herself as an exceptional musician, but in a place like St. Mary's Academy, her abilities were never just about talent. They were about perception, about fitting into a mold that she had never been meant to fit. She wasn't the typical image of what belonged at a prestigious institution like this, and that would always make her a target. She straightened her shoulders and walked out of the principal's office, making her way back to the music room where she had first played. The sounds of classmates talking filled the hallway, but Jasmine barely noticed them. She was already thinking ahead. When she walked into the music room, Mrs. Hadley was at her desk, looking over some papers. She glanced up as Jasmine entered, a smile of recognition on her face. Jasmine, you played beautifully today. That was something I've been waiting to hear for a while. Jasmine nodded quietly, but there was a tension in her chest. Thank you, Mrs. Hadley, but I'm afraid it's not all good news. I'm worried about what's going to happen next. I can already feel the pressure building. Mrs. Hadley's smile faded, replaced by a look of understanding. She stood from her desk, walking over to Jasmine. I know what you mean. I've seen it too. You're an exceptional student, Jasmine, but I won't lie to you. The fact that you're standing out so much in this school, with your talent and your background, makes you a target for certain people. Jasmine's brows furrowed. I don't understand. What do you mean, a target? Mrs. Hadley leaned against the desk, her hands clasped. There are always people who feel threatened by those who are different, people who are used to things being a certain way, and that makes them uncomfortable when someone like you, someone with so much potential, comes into their world and changes everything. Jasmine's throat tightened. She had seen this before. Throughout her life, she had dealt with people who tried to suppress her, to put her in a box where she couldn't reach her full potential. She had fought against the discrimination, the doubts, and the prejudices, but being here at St. Mary's, at an institution that prided itself on its legacy and tradition, was another battle entirely. What do I do, Mrs. Hadley? Jasmine asked, her voice quiet but resolute. I'm not backing down, but I don't know what to expect. Mrs. Hadley's eyes softened, her expression filled with sympathy and something deeper, regret. Jasmine, I've been teaching here for over 20 years, and I've seen it all. The politics, the privilege, the favoritism. It's not just about talent here. It's about perception, connections, and who you know. She sighed heavily, as if the weight of her words was finally sinking in. But you've got something they can't ignore. You've got the power to change things, and they're going to hate you for it. But the question is, how will you handle it? Jasmine swallowed hard. The fear she had pushed down earlier began to rise again, and she fought against it, unwilling to let it control her. She had worked her entire life for this moment. She wasn't going to let anyone take it away from her, especially not because they were uncomfortable with her talent or her identity. I'll handle it by standing firm, Jasmine said, her voice steady, even as her heart raced. I'm not backing down, and if they don't like it, that's their problem. Just as Jasmine was about to leave the music room, her phone buzzed in her pocket. She pulled it out, glancing at the message that had just come through. It was from Marcus, her mentor, and the message was short but direct. Jasmine, I need you to be ready. I've just received some intel that you're being watched. Things are escalating faster than we anticipated. We need to act quickly. Her breath caught in her throat as the realization hit her. This wasn't just about school anymore. This wasn't just about her performance or her future at St. Mary's. It was about her safety, and about making sure that nothing could take her down. She quickly typed back a reply. What's happening? The reply came almost immediately. It's bigger than we thought. Get to my office as soon as possible. We need to discuss the next steps. Jasmine's fingers tightened around her phone. Was this about the people who had been undermining her at school? Or was there a more sinister plan unfolding that she wasn't aware of? She turned to leave the room, her feet moving faster than before, the weight of her next steps heavier than ever. The air felt thick as Jasmine made her way to Marcus's office, her heart beating faster with each step. The tension she had been carrying for weeks was now beginning to coalesce into something more dangerous, something she could no longer ignore. Marcus's warning echoed in her mind. You're being watched. The phrase weighed heavily on her, and the reality of the situation began to sink in. What was once a simple battle for respect, for her place in this prestigious institution, had now escalated into something far more sinister. The glass walls of the office building shimmered in the daylight, reflecting the bright sun as she walked across the polished marble floor. She could feel the eyes of the other students as she passed, but she refused to acknowledge them. She had long stopped caring about their whispers. The world they lived in was a world of privilege, one that didn't take kindly to someone like her. She had already proven herself to be an outsider in their eyes, and now she would show them just how wrong they were. The receptionist smiled faintly as Jasmine approached. Ms. Lewis, Marcus is expecting you, she said, her voice polite but guarded. Jasmine gave a quick nod, her face betraying nothing. Thank you. She made her way down the hallway to Marcus's office, the door slightly ajar. As she entered, she saw him standing by the window, staring out over the city. His expression was unreadable, but there was an edge to his demeanor that told Jasmine something had shifted. He was on edge. This was no longer just a conversation about her future in school. This was about something much, much larger. Jasmine, Marcus said without turning around, his voice low. You got my message. Jasmine closed the door behind her and stepped toward his desk. I'm here. What's going on? She asked, trying to keep her voice steady. But the unease in her stomach was starting to twist, like a heavy knot that wouldn't loosen. Marcus turned slowly, his expression now serious. It's about the network behind you. The people you've been dealing with, those who've been trying to break you down. It's bigger than just the school or some petty politics. This goes deeper. Jasmine raised an eyebrow, surprised. What do you mean? What network? Who's behind this? Marcus reached for a folder on his desk, his hands steady, but his eyes showing signs of stress. I've been following the patterns, Jasmine. These aren't just some mean girls or a few prejudiced teachers. You've got people in positions of power, business leaders, lobbyists, political figures. They've been using this school as a launching pad, testing the waters to see how far they can push. You, me, this school. It's just a small part of the puzzle. Jasmine's breath caught in her throat. Political figures? Lobbyists. She had thought this was just about her performance, about her proving herself in a school where she never truly felt welcome. But Marcus was talking about something far bigger than that. Who are they? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. Why me? Why now? Marcus exhaled slowly, his face tense. Because you represent a threat, Jasmine. A young black woman who's more than just a stereotype. They want to make sure you don't succeed. They want to ensure you stay in your place. This goes beyond your performance in class. It's about keeping you from ever achieving the power you deserve. Jasmine shook her head, her mind spinning. This was far beyond the petty behavior of her classmates and teachers. The system she had been fighting wasn't just a set of biased individuals. It was an entire network, An organized effort to prevent people like her from ever making it to the top. What do we do now? Jasmine asked, her voice hardening as she finally began to understand the scale of the fight she was up against. Marcus looked at her for a long moment, his expression unreadable. We take action. He reached for a stack of papers and laid them out on the desk. I've been digging into the financials, the ties between the people pulling the strings. You're right to be suspicious of Ava's warning. There's a reason she came to you. This is bigger than you know. Jasmine leaned forward, her mind whirling. Ava, the same girl who had taunted her earlier that day, was somehow involved in all of this? But why? And how deep did this go? Do you think she's involved in all this? Jasmine asked, her eyes narrowing. Marcus nodded. I don't know how much she knows, but she's too close to these people for it to be a coincidence. They've been grooming her, just like they've been grooming the others. Ava may not be a mastermind, but she's definitely a pawn in this game. Jasmine felt a surge of anger rise within her. This was no longer about proving herself at St. Mary's or getting ahead in the music program. This was a war, one she had been thrust into without warning. But now, she had the knowledge and the resources to fight back. So what's next? She asked, her voice steady despite the adrenaline now coursing through her veins. Marcus's eyes met hers, and for the first time, Jasmine saw a glimmer of something she hadn't expected. Respect. Now we go on the offensive. We take down the system that's been holding you back, and we do it before they can cover their tracks. We'll expose them all, one by one. Asterisk, asterisk. Jasmine nodded, her determination growing stronger by the second. No more playing by their rules. She had already taken the first step, standing up for herself when the world tried to shut her down. Now, it was time to take it to the next level. Just as Jasmine stood up to leave, her phone buzzed in her pocket. She checked it quickly, and her stomach dropped when she saw the message from Ava. I know you're not going to let this go. I think you should know something. There's more at play here than just you and me. They're watching. Watch your back, Jasmine. Tasha's blood ran cold. Who was they? And what did Ava know that Jasmine hadn't yet uncovered? Just as she was about to call Marcus back, a knock on the office door interrupted her thoughts. She turned to see Mrs. Hadley standing in the doorway, her face flushed with anxiety. Jasmine, we need to talk. It's about Ava. She's made a move. She's with them. The others, they've got her involved in something dangerous. Jasmine felt a chill run down her spine as the reality of the situation hit her. Ava was more than just a rival. She was part of a larger, more dangerous plot than anyone had anticipated. Jasmine's mind raced as she left Marcus's office, her phone still vibrating in her hand. Ava had messaged her again, and the urgency in her words was unmistakable. Jasmine had suspected something wasn't right about Ava, but now the pieces were beginning to come together. Ava wasn't just some girl who had taunted her in class. She was caught up in a much bigger game, one that involved far more powerful figures than she could have ever imagined. Jasmine's mind drifted back to the music room earlier that day. The sound of her violin reverberated in her ears, the moment when everything changed. But now, as she walked through the corridors of St. Mary's Academy, the reality of what was happening began to settle in. She wasn't just trying to prove her talent anymore. She was up against an entire system, a network of corruption that had been carefully built and maintained for years. The conversation with Mrs. Hadley kept playing over and over in her mind. Had she known about this all along? Was she part of the conspiracy too? Or had she been just another pawn in the system? She reached her next destination, the classroom where Ava had last been seen. It was empty now, the room still as she walked inside. Her fingers hovered over her phone, her mind processing what to do next. She had to act fast. The message from Ava had shaken her, but she couldn't afford to let it distract her. There was a meeting scheduled, and she couldn't afford to miss it. The danger was mounting, and the walls were closing in on her. The next step was clear: confront Ava. The air outside was crisp as Jasmine walked toward the school's back entrance, where Ava had promised to meet her. The coldness of the late afternoon seemed to match the tension in her chest. This wasn't just about a confrontation between two girls anymore. This was about taking down everything that had been built to keep people like her from succeeding. When Jasmine arrived at the back of the building, she saw Ava standing by the side door, her arms crossed. She looked nervous, but there was something different in her demeanor, something that felt almost like regret. "Ava," Jasmine said, her voice calm but edged with authority. "We need to talk." Ava didn't look at her immediately. She was staring at the ground, as though she didn't want to meet Jasmine's eyes. Jasmine's frustration was growing, but she fought to keep it in check. She couldn't let this be another petty fight. "Ava, what's going on?" Jasmine demanded, her voice firm. "You've been involved in something far deeper than just the school, haven't you? I know there's more. You're working with people who are trying to control everything. So tell me, why didn't you just come to me?" Ava hesitated, her eyes finally meeting Jasmine's. There was something vulnerable in them now, something Jasmine hadn't expected. Ava was no longer the smug, arrogant girl who had tried to belittle her in front of the class. She was scared. "I didn't want to be part of it, Jasmine, but I didn't have a choice," Ava said, her voice shaky. "You don't understand how powerful they are. I was just following orders. I thought if I just kept my head down, I wouldn't get hurt. But it's too late now. They have everyone, people in the school, in the district, even some high-ranking officials. I can't back out now." Jasmine felt a wave of understanding wash over her, but the frustration remained. She had been playing by the rules her entire life, and now she saw how deep the system ran, how dangerous the game was. She wasn't going to let Ava's fear stop her now. Ava's confession had given her just enough ammunition to move forward. "You can still help us, Ava," Jasmine said, her voice softening. "You can still do the right thing. Help me bring them down. You've seen what they're capable of. They're not invincible, you know. We can expose them together." Ava's eyes filled with tears. She shook her head, her lips trembling. "I want a Jasmine, I really do. But I've made so many mistakes. And they won't let me walk away. They know about me, about everything I've done. If I try to go against them, they'll destroy me. They'll make sure I'm never seen again." Jasmine took a step forward, her voice steady. "If you don't stand up now, they'll destroy you anyway. And they'll destroy everyone else who stands in their way. I'm not asking you to save yourself. I'm asking you to do the right thing for once. For us." For a moment, the air between them was thick with tension. Ava was caught, torn between her fear of the consequences and the chance to redeem herself. Jasmine could see it in her eyes, the internal battle. Finally, Ava spoke. "I'm in." Her voice was quiet but resolute. "I'll help you. But we need to move quickly. If we wait too long, they'll find out. They'll come after us." Jasmine nodded, the weight of what they were about to do settling heavily on her shoulders. This wasn't just about one girl standing up for herself. It was about a network of power and corruption, and together, they were going to take it down. The next few days were a blur of activity. Jasmine and Ava worked in secret, meeting in the hidden corners of the school and coordinating with Marcus and his contacts on the outside. The information they had gathered about Ava's involvement had been enough to secure some leverage, but the network they were going up against was vast, and they had to be careful. Jasmine's phone buzzed late one night, and when she checked the message, she felt her stomach drop. It was from Marcus. "The feds are in. This is bigger than we thought. Get ready. It's happening now." The next morning, as Jasmine walked through the school hallways, everything felt different. Ava's confession had given them the opening they needed, but it also opened a door to a world Jasmine hadn't yet seen. She couldn't shake the feeling that things were spiraling out of control. As she entered the classroom, a familiar face met her gaze, the principal, Mr. Peterson. He was watching her from across the room, his eyes narrowed with suspicion. Jasmine felt a chill run down her spine. "Jasmine," he said, his voice cutting through the chatter. "We need to talk." The tension in the room was palpable, the silence almost suffocating as Jasmine stood facing Principal Peterson. The way he was looking at her, his posture rigid, made her feel like the walls were closing in. For a moment, she thought she could hear her own heartbeat, loud in her ears. It wasn't the first time she had felt this pressure in her life, but this time was different. This wasn't just about getting the best grades or fitting in. This was about something far more important. It was about justice. "Jasmine, we need to talk," Principal Peterson said again. His tone clipped. Jasmine could feel the weight of his words hanging in the air. She hadn't expected him to show his face again after everything that had happened, but now she saw it clearly. He was involved in something deeper than just school politics. He was part of the system that had tried to crush her from the beginning. She couldn't back down now. She had to expose him and everything else. "What do you want, Mr. Peterson?" Jasmine's voice was cold, but her mind was sharp. Peterson stepped forward, his gaze focused on her, his eyes narrowing slightly. "You've caused quite a stir, haven't you?" His voice dropped. "I've been watching you, Jasmine, watching how you've rallied others to your side." Jasmine's heart pounded, but she stood her ground. He wasn't going to intimidate her. Not now. Not when she was so close. "I'm not the one causing the stir, Mr. Peterson," she said firmly. "You've been hiding something. Something big. And it's about time everyone knew the truth." For a moment, Peterson didn't respond. His eyes flicked to the door, and Jasmine could see the hesitation in his eyes. He knew. He knew he was about to lose control. "You're right," Peterson said quietly, his voice barely above a whisper. "There's more to this than you understand. But the people I work with, those in power, they'll make sure you're silenced. They'll make sure this all gets buried." Jasmine's pulse quickened, but she didn't let the fear take hold. This was the moment she had been preparing for, the moment when the truth would finally come to light. "You can't bury the truth forever," she said, her voice strong. "Not when we've already exposed it. This isn't just about me. This is about everyone you've hurt, everyone who's been silenced by people like you. I won't let you get away with it, and I won't let you stop me from taking you down." Jasmine turned, walking toward the door. She could feel Peterson's gaze on her, but she didn't turn back. She didn't need to. She had won. By the time Jasmine reached the FBI task force's office, the pieces were already in motion. Marcus and his team had been gathering evidence for days, pulling apart the tangled web of corruption and manipulation that had been woven through St. Mary's Academy and beyond. But now, it wasn't just about the school. It was about an entire network of power spanning across the city, involving lobbyists, corporate executives, and politicians who had been using their influence to manipulate the system. Jasmine walked into the conference room, her mind still racing. The agents were gathered around a table, the walls lined with photos, documents, and maps, the evidence they had been compiling for days. The scale of what they were facing was staggering. But Jasmine wasn't overwhelmed. She was ready. "We've got him." Marcus looked up from a file, his voice steady. "Clark's people are all connected. They're involved in a money laundering scheme that goes all the way back to the top." Tasha's hands clenched. Senator Clark had been at the heart of it all. His involvement had been more than just a corrupt politician. He was part of a network that had been using people like her to build an empire on lies and oppression. "What's the next step?" Jasmine asked, her voice filled with resolve. "We have to move fast," Marcus said, his face grim. "The network goes deeper than we thought, but we've got the evidence we need. We need to hit them all at once." The agents exchanged looks, their determination mirroring Jasmine's. The pieces were falling into place. They were about to launch a full-scale operation to expose and dismantle the entire network. "We can't give them a chance to cover their tracks," one of the agents said. "We'll take them down one by one. Clark's the key, but we need to make sure the others don't get away." Jasmine nodded, feeling the weight of everything they had worked for. This was the moment they had all been fighting for. But even as she prepared for what came next, something else was on her mind. The final stage of the operation began. Federal agents swarmed Clark's offices, while others took down key figures in the network. Every agent in the task force was focused, determined to get to the truth. But nothing prepared Jasmine for the moment when she saw Senator Clark in person. She had seen him in the news, on TV, in the halls of power. But this was different. Clark, a man who had used his influence to control the system, was now standing in front of her, his once powerful demeanor replaced with nervousness and fear. The smug, confident politician who thought he was untouchable now looked like a cornered animal. "You're making a huge mistake, Jasmine. You have no idea who you're dealing with," Clark said, his voice shaking with desperation. Jasmine stepped forward, her gaze unwavering. "I know exactly who you are. You're a man who used your power to hurt people like me, and now you're going to pay for it." The agents quickly moved in, handcuffing Clark and reading him his rights. He struggled briefly, but it was useless. The end of his reign had come. Jasmine's heart swelled with pride as she watched the man who had caused so much harm be taken into custody. This was more than just a victory for her. This was a victory for everyone who had ever been overlooked or mistreated. As Clark was escorted out of the room, Jasmine felt the weight of everything she had just accomplished. The network was crumbling, and she had played a pivotal role in making it happen. But as she turned to leave, she received a message on her phone. "We need to talk. There's more. This isn't over." Jasmine stared at the screen, the words hanging in the air like a shadow over her triumph. Was it really over? Had they caught all the players involved? Or was there still something lurking beneath the surface, waiting to resurface? She didn't have time to answer. She had come too far, and now it was time for the final confrontation. But the bigger question remained. What was the next battle that awaited her? This was the final battle. Jasmine's journey had been filled with countless obstacles, from her struggles at St. Mary's Academy to the powerful forces trying to suppress her at every turn. But in the end, she had shown the world that nothing would stop her. The system had been broken, piece by piece, and now the truth had finally been exposed. But as Jasmine looked out the window, the weight of what they had accomplished began to sink in. She knew the fight for justice wasn't over. It would never truly end. The final reckoning had come, but the story was still unfolding. The fight for justice was just beginning. Jasmine's journey is a reminder that no matter how powerful the forces against us may seem, the truth will always find its way to the surface. She stood tall in the face of a system that tried to break her, showing us that resilience isn't just about surviving. It's about thriving in the face of adversity. Today, Jasmine didn't just defeat one person. She challenged an entire system built to silence voices like hers. If her story moved you, if you believe that justice should never be ignored, hit that like button and share your thoughts in the comments below. Subscribe for more powerful stories that reveal the strength of those who refuse to be silenced. Together, we can ensure the truth will always have a voice, our voice.